The rumor started as a joke on campus. The kind students whispered about in crowded hallways. A famous math professor, known for his sharp tongue and impossible challenges, once said, "Solve this equation, and I'll marry you." Everyone laughed, thinking it was just another one of his dramatic lines. But the story took an unexpected turn the morning he wrote a strange, unsolved equation on the board, one so complex that even his brightest students froze at the sight of it. As the class struggled, the professor smirked, convinced no one would crack it. That's when a quiet janitor pushing a cleaning cart paused by the door. He wasn't a student. He wasn't even supposed to be inside the lecture hall during class hours, yet something about the symbols on the board pulled him in. Slowly he stepped forward, surprising everyone. The professor laughed, certain the man was only curious. But the moment the janitor picked up the chalk, the room fell silent. With steady hands and calm eyes, he began writing, each step of the solution unfolding like he had carried it in his mind for years. And when he reached the final line, the professor's smile faded because the impossible suddenly wasn't impossible anymore. The chalk tapped softly against the board, but to the students it sounded like thunder. No one understood how a man who spent his days mopping floors could glide through an equation their professor claimed was unsolvable. The professor tried to hide his shock behind a tight smile, but his eyes kept returning to each line the janitor wrote, as if searching for a mistake that simply wasn't there. Whispers spread through the room. Some students leaned forward, wondering if this was a prank. Others pulled out their phones, ready to capture the strange moment that felt like a glitch in reality. But the janitor didn't seem bothered by the attention. He worked with a calm focus, almost like he had solved problems like this long before he ever held a mop or pushed a cart. No one knew his name. He had always been the quiet man in the hallway, greeting people with a soft smile before disappearing into another room to clean. Now, seeing him stand under bright lecture lights, it felt as if a hidden part of his life was slipping through the cracks. The professor tried to interrupt, stepping closer, but something kept him silent, because each symbol the janitor added only deepened the mystery of who he really was and why he knew the answer to a challenge no one was supposed to solve. The air in the lecture hall felt heavier as the janitor stepped back from the board, leaving the final steps unfinished on purpose. It was as if he wanted the professor to understand something before seeing the end. The professor stared at the half-solved equation, his confidence slipping. He had built his reputation on being untouchable, the kind of scholar no one dared to challenge. But now, a man everyone overlooked was shaking the ground beneath him. Students whispered theories. Some thought the janitor might be a retired genius who had given up academia. Others believed he was hiding from something, using the quiet life of a janitor to stay out of sight. Even the campus security guard standing near the door watched him with new curiosity, wondering how many times he had walked past a mystery without noticing. Meanwhile, the professor's favorite student, Emily, felt torn. She admired the professor, but the janitor's steady confidence unsettled her. She noticed the way he studied the board, not like someone showing off, but like someone remembering a past he never planned to share. The tension between the two men grew with every silent second, filling the room with questions no one dared to ask. And just as the professor finally found his voice, ready to challenge the stranger, the janitor quietly said something that made the entire class freeze again. Something that hinted the real conflict was only beginning. The lecture hall had grown unnervingly silent. Every eye was fixed on the board, on the janitor, and on the professor, who now looked like a man trying to catch a storm with his bare hands. His usual confidence was gone, replaced by a mix of disbelief and panic. How could someone who had spent his life cleaning floors, someone no one had ever noticed, told the answer to an equation he had deemed impossible? Emily's heart raced. She watched the subtle tension in the professor's posture, the way his fingers twitched as if itching to snatch the chalk. Meanwhile, the janitor moved with a quiet calm, his gaze steady, almost knowing the power he now held over the room. Each stroke of chalk was deliberate, each mark on the board a silent challenge, daring the professor to keep his pride in check. Students whispered frantically among themselves, sharing theories and suspicions. Was the janitor a hidden genius, a former mathematician, or was this some elaborate trick meant to humiliate the professor? The answers didn't matter yet. The suspense hung in the air like static, charging every nerve in the room. Then, the janitor paused and looked directly at the professor. His eyes seemed to hold a secret the world wasn't ready for, a truth so potent it could change everything. The professor swallowed hard, realizing this was more than just an equation. And at that moment, everyone felt that the climax was close, and whatever happened next would leave no one untouched. Just as the tension in the room seemed unbearable, the janitor did something no one expected. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, worn notebook. Flipping it open, he revealed pages filled with equations, diagrams, and notes in neat, precise handwriting. The professor's eyes widened in disbelief. This wasn't just luck or intuition. This man had studied this problem, or problems like it, in secret for years. A murmur ran through the students. How could a janitor, someone whose life had seemed ordinary, carry knowledge rivaling a world-renowned scholar? Emily's curiosity deepened. She noticed subtle hints in his notes, patterns that suggested this wasn't a one-time feat. Whoever he was, he had been preparing for this moment long before anyone had noticed him in the hallways or classrooms. The professor stepped closer, his voice shaking, a mix of anger and awe. Where did you learn this? The janitor didn't answer directly. Instead, he tapped the equation on the board, his eyes sharp and unwavering. Some knowledge isn't found in textbooks, he said, almost cryptically, hinting at a past no one could imagine. Suddenly, the campus doors burst open. Another figure appeared, someone from the janitor's past, whose presence immediately raised the stakes. The professor, the students, even Emily, felt the air shift. Whatever game had begun was now spiraling beyond equations and chalk. Secrets, challenges, and truths long hidden were about to collide, and no one was ready for what came next. The classroom felt like it was holding its breath. The second figure, tall and imposing, stepped closer to the janitor, and the room instantly recognized the tension between them. Whispers spread. This wasn't just a simple challenge anymore. The janitor's calm demeanor never wavered, but there was a flicker of recognition in his eyes, a silent acknowledgement that the past had finally caught up. The professor's hands shook slightly as he watched the janitor complete the last line of the equation. The solution wasn't just correct, it was elegant, revolutionary even. Gasps echoed through the room. For the first time, the professor realized that this man, who had been overlooked for years, had outsmarted him entirely. Pride and disbelief warred across his face. Then, the janitor turned to the second figure, a former colleague from a secret research project no one knew existed. With a quiet, almost mischievous smile, he revealed that the notebook contained not just the solution, but a formula that could change the way advanced mathematics was understood. The second figure froze. Realizing that the janitor had completed work they had all believed was impossible, Emily stared in awe, her mind racing. The professor could only nod, swallowing his pride, as the janitor calmly said, "Some challenges are meant for the right person at the right time." Just when it seemed the tension had resolved, the janitor reached into his pocket again. Pulling out an old folded letter addressed to the professor, everyone leaned in, hearts pounding. The letter began with words no one expected, signaling that the real story, and the real mystery, had only just begun. The room was still buzzing as the professor carefully unfolded the letter. It wasn't just any note, it was a personal message from a mentor he had admired years ago, one that revealed the janitor had once been a brilliant mathematician forced to leave academia under mysterious circumstances. The professor's eyes softened, understanding at last why the janitor had stayed hidden. Quietly observing while the world overlooked him, Emily stepped closer. Inspired by the courage and brilliance she had witnessed, she realized that true talent and determination could appear in the most unexpected forms. The students slowly clapped, some in awe, others relieved to witness a story that had unfolded far beyond ordinary lectures. Even the second figure, the janitor's former colleague, nodded in quiet respect, acknowledging the man's extraordinary resolve. The professor approached the janitor, offering a genuine handshake this time, free of pride or rivalry. "I underestimated you," he admitted, a rare moment of humility. The janitor simply smiled and said, "Some challenges are meant to be shared, not conquered alone." As the class emptied, Emily lingered, reflecting on the lesson of the day. Intelligence and wisdom often hide where we least expect, and sometimes the quietest voices carry the loudest truths. The campus had returned to its usual rhythm, but the story of the janitor's brilliance and the lessons it